Nice to have you back. We're talking about the Household Wellness Index. It was a project that was undertaken by Momentum and by Unisa. And in the studio with us, Leanne de Toit, who's the head of client management at Momentum, and Bernadene de Clercq, the head of the personal finance research unit at Unisa, just discussing this particular project that they undertook together to judge what the wellness of the South African household is. And Leanne, as you were saying in the break, it's a more holistic view. It's not just how much money do you earn, what do you spend it on?
Yes, I think that's what makes this index unique, and now there has been no other index like this in South Africa before, is the fact that we take a complete holistic view of a consumer of a specific household. So it's not just your income, it's also how much assets you've got, it's what your liabilities are. It's even taking things further than your level of education and how that impacts on your wealth going forward and your income going forward. Looking at your social standing and your human your support structures. A stupid example is, for instance, do you have a parent or a brother or a sister that will be able to care for you if you lose your job? Those are also factors that you need to consider. It's not just about what your income is. And the way that Unisa has grabbed all the different elements, it links very nicely to how Momentum wants to take a holistic approach, but that actually adds value to the consumer because everything's actually interdependent on a consumer level.
Was there anything during the process of this research, were there any numbers that came up that you sat back and looked at and went, yes, like, that's scary?
Yeah, I think we all know education is important, but this index showed us how important. There was a huge difference in the wellness levels of people with the higher levels of education compared to lower levels. So it was just not a bit of a difference, it was really a big difference. So for us, the level of education is different, and I think that's why for Momentum as well, the whole issue of financial education, it has to be specific for the needs. So therefore we have to understand that people understand the long-term impact of financial wellness. So education was for us one of the bigger issues that we saw. Then we also saw one that also for us was a bit of a concern is on the age differences between the levels of the score. And we saw that there was an increase on the level of the wellness level as age increased as one would have expected, but it dropped as people reached retirement age. And that confirms Leanne's statistics that people do not have sufficient financial resources when they reach retirement age. So again, that showed us some of the structural problems that households or consumers need to address. So it's fine as long as there's a fixed term of income. At the moment that retirement is almost the reality, there were problems with the overall wellness.
Okay, we always try to pin down numbers, and I know it's not easy to do, but we try to pin down numbers because I'm the sort of person who, when I sit with somebody like you and you say, you need to plan for your retirement, I want to know how much I should have. You were bandying numbers around, you were saying around about 10%. Is that 10% of your gross income that you should be investing into some sort of retirement annuity?
Well, it's basically, you can maybe rather look at your net income because you don't have that much left to play around with. But it's also looking at when you start. So it's very difficult for me to say 10% because are you starting at 21? Are you starting at 39? Are you starting at the age of 50? Because it actually at the point, and how long are you going to work for? So that's actually where you need someone to actually take you through the process of working out what you need to retire for. Because
what are South Africans? Where are South Africans retiring? Do we
later
know?
And later. We're starting
because
to
they can't afford to.
Yes, because they can't afford to. I mean, traditionally the retirement age was between 60 and 65. We're seeing a lot of people now going into second careers. And what would be ideal is if you can build a little bit of an asset base to be self-sustainable. So your second career is not being in employment, because a lot of large corporates these days are not keeping people on over 70, over 72 and 75. And now you're adding the longevity risk as well. I mean, the people that are going to be 100 have already been born. A lot of people are going to be 100. So we've got that thing added as well. So you need to look at how long you're going to work for, and don't think because your parents retired at 60, you're going to retire at 60. Things are changing.
It's a different world.
It's a different world. And knowing that what type of a lifestyle do you want to have, and what type of a lifestyle can you afford? So it's so complex to peg down a number. That's why we're very cautious to give you a number. You really need to go through someone that's an accredited advisor, for instance, to take you through that process, to say, okay, now let's be real here. And maybe you should change a little bit of your lifestyle today. And that will make sure that you're sustainable into the future. And if you're 21, I mean, it sounds so crazy, but just saving that little bit of 21, even if it's 100 Rand a month, makes a massive difference when you're 60.
Yeah.
Start soon.
Now, let's get back to this education aspect here, because very, very interesting what you were saying about the higher the education, the better the wellness of the household. It would then indicate to me that people should be looking at education-based products, should be investing in those sort of products for their kids, so that they achieve a higher education, so that their wellness in 40 years' time is better off than ours is.
There's actually a great product, the Unisa product. It's exactly that type of product. And that is one that was started with the government to invest for people to save in education for their children. And the uptake on that product is not that good, although it's really a great product. So people are almost it's too good to be true type of concept, but that's exactly the whole thought about it, because the government actually gives you some additional, not a rebate, but a double up of what you have invested into that fund. They will double up to certain maximums. But that should then eventually be used for education, and it's paid over directly to a tertiary education. So you can't get hold of it, but it's invested to identify a child. That is exactly the type of thing that we should look at. So it takes on responsibility as well. I think there's an attitude of the government has to look after me. They will have to pick up education. They will have to do all this type of things. I don't need to do anything. Coming back to the index, that's what we recall to the social capital. You need to take responsibility for yourself as well. So what's your attitude? I need to take responsibility for my children's education if I'm on my own, and look at different products. And I think that's also where Treasury is now coming with their different savings incentives type of products that they want to have this debate on in the next 6 months. We should have sound policy, sound products that addresses the right needs.
But to be honest, from a consumer point of view, the government has made all these promises that you are entitled to a house and education and healthcare and. So there are a lot of people who are sitting in a rural community who expect the government to deliver on those promises now. I want my house. You promised me 18 years ago I'd have a house. Where's my house?
And that's a big problem for the 6 million taxpayers that are paying for all of that. And if you look at the social grants that has increased, we can't afford it. The country can't afford to keep on going the way that we are currently doing. So I think that's why it's also important. The 6 million taxpayers, if all of them pick up and go, what will happen to the rest? So we have to extend the market on the taxpayers, but we also, the whole idea is employment. That's where we keep on get stuck with all these policies. That would be a big answer to a lot of our problems if we can increase the employment numbers.
And if you've got the right information, you can make the right decisions. So we now are bringing the credible information. Education is key. Legislators can prioritize education. I know they are, but maybe lift that level higher. You as a parent can make education your primary responsibility for your child. And even though you've got products, people aren't using them. So we must create that awareness, show the facts, and then get consumers to invest, as well as legislators to spend the money on the right things.
How long have you guys had this information for? When did this come out? Does this come out?
April.
Yes.
April.
Yes, our first index came out just in April.
Are you now, I take it you've now pulled this to pieces and you've thrown it at all your product managers and said, we need to come up with products to suit this. What sort of time frame are you looking at here?
From a product positioning and from a momentum perspective, we will be enhancing, and we will be rolling out new enhancements over the next few months and years. So by the end of the year, Momentum will take a stronger stance around financial wellness, which links very closely to what Unisa has done thus far. But it's a complete mind shift to start with actually the client need first. So we're very much working on what can we start with first.
Your accident insurance not used to this, eh?
It's a very, but it's fantastic. We're loving it. We're loving it.
So do you foresee a lot of changes in the industry as a result of this sort of
Definitely. It's not just from a momentum perspective. You can see insurers, financial advisors, generally in the financial services industry, there's a big shift towards focusing on, firstly, the holistic theme. So it's not just about the one side of the coin, it's the whole being that we're catering for. But secondly, around starting with, okay, what is the sustainable benefit for that client or that consumer? And I can see it coming across, and it's international trends also very much showing that. We're lagging what's happening in the financial services industry internationally a little bit, but it's a general theme going across the board.
Speaking of international, Are there research projects like this happening overseas as well that you can tap into and get information from?
There are certain projects, they're not 100% the same that we did. So it comes back to what you define as wellness. There's a host of projects on financial wellness, but they all have different angles. So we do collate what we get from other international sources and local research sources as well, and bring it all together and to say, but this explains these trends, or this tells us, or this is what they picked up. Another is coming back to your need for numbers. Another thing that we're busy of looking at is what's been done internationally is creating almost benchmark ratios. So it's a set of numbers. Do you have emergency fund? Do you have a number of assets like these type of liquidity, solvency ratios? So these are a bag of ratios that we are planning on really looking at. What is the norm? What would be, it's never one shoe fits all, but given that type of benchmark, do you adhere to this? No, I don't, so this is the first priority. So we're looking at creating those type of, and a lot of that type of research has been done internationally, but that we will start now.
If there was one thing that you would like to see changed as a result of the research that you've done, what would that be?
I think it's a mindset, and I want to reiterate what Leanne said. Start saving as soon as possible, because we also saw that on the age level, is that people really understand. Coming back to looking at an aggregate number that tells some people they have a lot and some people have a few, but it tells you, even if you have got a little, start today with that little, it's going to become a number in a year's time. We all understand, or not everybody understand, compound interest, and that's the whole idea about this type of information. If you can do that as soon as possible.
Your side, Leanne, if there was one thing you could change?
It's very aligned to that. It's getting that understanding, the difference between instant gratification and delayed gratification. Because everyone, you know, you won't cancel your DSTV, but you'll cancel your insurance and it's cancel your investment. So if we can get the right type of message across through facts, figures, any kind of messaging that you must save now, you must look at a holistic view, because it's not just for you, it's for your children, it's going into the future. So it's just getting that awareness to each consumer out there, and everyone will have a different level of take-up. But start now and understand the difference between instant versus delayed gratification.
That's unfortunately where we're going to have to leave it, ladies. Thank you very much for your time. If I can give you one piece of advice, because these two words, instant gratification, come up nearly every single show. Watch out for that instant gratification. It is what bites you on the bum and takes a huge chunk out of the wallet that you've got in your back pocket in any case.